What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson. It's an exciting day for us here at Inside the Panthers. We're adding a new guy in an official capacity today. This is Dom Campbell, our new Pitt writer. Dom, we're happy to have you aboard and excited to have you on the Inside Pitt practice report.
Stephen, I'm happy to be here and happy to be covering everything Pitt.
We're really excited to have you. Today was your first day, and you've been around spring practice all spring. But today was your first day as a member of our team. Right now, it was a busy day, kind of an exciting day. Spring game is just about 2 days away. It was their last day of practice before heading to Acrisure Stadium for the Blue Gold game. A little bit of a different format this year. Last year it was offense versus defense. Now they're back to kind of a traditional inter-squad scrimmage. Yesterday they split the team in half, did a spring game draft. Do you like this format, or do you like the old format? What do you kind of make of going back to the old spring game format? Because Pat Narduzzi certainly likes it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's fun to see the different captains pick players, and it was a kind of an enjoyable experience just watching them have fun, get rowdy, and just spring practice can be a bit of a lull for everyone. So just having a little bit of fun and just enjoying yourself. Which you have 4 or 5 months till the season starts, so you might as well have some fun in April.
Right. Like for what I think this game is going to lack in real substance, like I don't think we're going to be able to tell a whole lot about what Pitt is going to look like, in fall of 2024, what they're going to look like when they get together in August, and certainly not what they're going to look like in September or for the season opener against Kent State. But I think we're going to have some fun. Like I think you're going to see some interesting things. I think guys are really fired up about it. I think this is a team that, um, coaches have been kind of stoking the fire of competition underneath them. Like the whole like pissed off about 3-9 last year. That is like that I think that's real. I think that's been manifested on the field, and guys are really feeling the pressure to improve upon that campaign. And this is a way to, I think, just encourage some more competition, get guys more engaged. And like you said, like spring ball is kind of a drag, especially when you get to this time of the year, you're just hitting the same guys for 4 or 5 weeks. And you need to make things interesting or fresh in some way. And I feel like the draft was a great way to do that. Putting guys against one another, putting, guys together on a team and get them rooting for guys is a really good way to do that as well. So, like not going to learn a lot, I don't think. Like you split a team down the middle and you're obviously not going to get a look at what they look like when they're whole, but we're going to have some fun and we're going to see some cool guys. We're going to see some guys do some cool things as we go through it. Like I said yesterday, we were at the draft. You and I sat there. We saw them go through all those picks. What kind of stands out to you about these rosters? Is there any one team that you think has an advantage? What do you think's notable about the way they split up gold and blue teams?
I feel like the gold team has a pretty solid offensive line. Obviously, they're a little bit banged up to some extent, that unit, but I think they have a better offensive line than the blue team does. But obviously, I think taking Kenny Johnson with the first overall pick, I know that it was basically position group based instead of just pick Nate Yarnell first and quarterbacks and all that stuff. I know Pat was asking us why do they not pick the quarterback first, and obviously Kenny Johnson, seeing the season he had last year as a true freshman, and now we obviously got to speak to him today. He's going to be a sophomore this season. It's really exciting to see how he'll grow in this offense with Campbell. So excited to see that. I think as well, I like the safeties the gold team has. I think Donovan McMillan, senior, obviously transferred from Florida the season prior. Started a lot last season, and obviously Jesse Anderson is a freshman, a redshirt freshman that the coaches have been building up a lot. And the rest of his teammates are building up this spring, so I'm excited to see what he can do. They have interesting linebackers as well. Braylon Lovelace, who was a true freshman last year, saw a lot of time, and Jeremiah Marcelin, who's a true freshman now, early enrollee. I'll be excited to see what he can do. They also have Gavin. Can't go wrong with Gavin Bartholomew and Dayon Hayes as well. They got some really good guys in that team. I'm taking the gold team, I'd say.
Yeah, so you think the gold team's going to win? Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think the gold team they're mostly just interesting because they've got the closest thing to a starting offensive line. I mean, you got Bear, Williams, and Jason Collier in there who all started games last year. Lyndon Cooper is going to play some center, the transfer from NC State. He's been a starter at the ACC level before, and then Jackson Brown, a talented transfer that they like as well. So seems like they're keeping that one a little bit more whole. They kind of did like a first-team offensive line, a second-team offensive line. They didn't make offensive linemen available in the draft. They just kind of split them up ones and twos. I am interested. I think the safeties on the other side on the blue team are really interesting just because it's PJ O'Brien and Javon McIntyre, like kind of two guys who have played together before. Both those that's two guys with starting experience in that safety group. And for as good as PJ O'Brien is, and I think that he'll have a good season this year, he was kind of the third guy in that safety group. McIntyre and McMillan kind of took the vast majority of the starting reps, and they seemed like kind of the top dogs, even in a group where you had three guys rotating in a lot. So I think PJ O'Brien's going to bring a chip on his shoulder, and I think this is a time where he's going to prove no, it's a three-man group. I'm not, kind of an afterthought, and I think he's going to bring a ton of emotion like he always does. And they're also like, I mean, just throughout this blue team, I mean, I think they're less experienced, but there's some interesting like young guys who I think are really going to feel motivated to step up. I mean, look at running back with Desmond Reed, Montravius Lloyd, and Derek Davis. I mean, those are three guys who there's a freshman in there, but there's a transfer from Western Carolina who's trying to prove that he can make it at the FBS level. There's Derek Davis who's proven that he can just trying to make it as a running back, a guy, a positional convert. But you've also got Jake Overman, who's trying to break in, Zion Fowler, who's trying to break in as a wide receiver. Nick James, another transfer, Jimmy Scott, a guy that I don't think we're talking about a whole lot at defensive end, but has played before, and we've heard some decent things about him. Ryland Gandy stepping up into a starting spot. Rasheem Biles, another freshman who played a little bit last year, but is still trying to prove that, like, yeah, I'm here, man. It wasn't just flashes of talent. I'm here all the time. So I'm interested in the blue team, but I kind of agree with you. I think the gold team has a little bit of an advantage as it stands right now. The other thing we got to talk about is that there are some names that could be in, could be out for this game. There's some questionable guys, some guys dealing with a little bit of injuries. I think the coaching staff has preferred to be a little bit more cautious at this point of the year. But there's some guys that are definitely listed as out. We're talking about Solomon DeShields, Cruz Brookins, Raphael Williams, Taman Lynham, Key Thompson, Terrence Moore, Dorian Ford, Branson Taylor, Jordan Bass, CJ Lee, Che Nabuko, Zach Crothers, and Shadarian Harrison. So pretty lengthy list. A lot of those guys are starters or, could be rotational guys. So going to be a little bit disjointed, but there's some guys who are dealing with injuries, could come back. Narduzzi called Tamarian Crumpley, a cornerback, called him questionable, called defensive tackles Sean Fitzsimmons, Francis Brew, and Nakai Johnson, as well as running back Derek Davis and wide receiver Israel Polk, probable to play. How many of those guys do you actually think end up making it onto the field on Saturday? We've already had one kind of change to the injury report. Rodney Hammond was listed as out on Wednesday. On Thursday, Narduzzi told us he's going to play, but will be in a non-contact red jersey. Do you expect any more changes to the injury report going into Saturday, Tom?
I mean, I saw Izzy Polk at practice today, and I saw Francis Brew as well. So those two guys are guys I'll be hopefully. I mean, for the gold team, they'll be wanting to see those guys out. I don't know if I saw Derek Davis out there or Nakai or Sean Fitzsimmons, but those Francis and Israel Polk, those two guys I did see today. So hopefully we get to see them this Saturday.
Yeah, and those are two guys with I think a lot of proof. Israel Polk, we heard a lot about him last year, especially late in the year. Kind of a tricky situation where he's a true freshman. Do you burn his red shirt to get him some more experience? I mean, there was definitely snaps to go around. In an offense that kind of struggled. And then Francis Brew plays a position where Pitt lost so much, and there's so many snaps up for grabs. So, I mean, these are really big games. These are really big moments for these guys to kind of prove that they belong. I'll also say I saw Tamarian Crumpley out there. That's another guy at cornerback whose position is pretty wide open, and he should have a chance to compete for a starting job. So, this is a big game for him. I'm sure all these guys are going to push to play. We were sitting in the draft yesterday, though, and Narduzzi said that Crumpley is going to be out, but he kind of ribbed him a little bit. He said, Crumpley could play if only he gets in the training room, So I'd have to imagine he's relatively close or capable of coming back, but we'll see what he's able to do on Saturday. I did see him practice today. He was in pads participating fully, it seemed like. So seems like there's optimistic things there. I expect a few of these guys to play, but honestly, I do expect the coaching staff to be a little overly cautious. There are a couple guys in here that I think they feel really strongly about. I think Fitzsimmons is one of them. So if there's any doubt, I think a guy like him could sit. That said, guys like Brew, even Nakai Johnson and Crumpley, those are guys that they're really going to want to get on the field if those guys are, healthy enough to play. And I think if they're close to playing, they probably will. The other notable thing to come out of the draft yesterday, at least I thought, was it came late in the draft, but they didn't pick the quarterbacks until real late. And when they did, the first pick, not very much of a surprise. Nate Yarnell was the first quarterback taken off the board, but the second pick was very surprising. It was Eli Holstein, the freshman transfer from Alabama, picked in front of Christian Veyer. And I think when that happened, everyone, all of the media at least, who were in attendance, kind of looked around at each other and thought, we didn't really expect to see that. Were you surprised at all to see that Holstein was picked ahead of Veyer? And do you think this represents anything kind of real as it relates to the depth chart potentially?
Well, I don't think it was surprising because we've been at practice for so long. I think when we've seen Yarnell, who's obviously taking first team reps, Eli Holstein's been taking a lot of second team reps, and it really seems like from what the coaches said, from what Pat Narduzzi said today, and some of the other people, that they really like Eli Holstein. I mean, they didn't bring in a transfer from Alabama to be a third string guy. And one of the things that I thought that Pat said that was very interesting was the fact that Eli protects the ball. Now, obviously, Christian came in last season, was a sort of a fresh breath of air from Phil Jerkovic, but the problem was he turned the ball over a lot, and eventually Nate Yarnell took over his starting position. I think while Nate Yarnell will start the season, Eli Holstein, who was dealing with some hamstring injury prior to spring season and a little bit more recently, will now be able to show who he really is. I mean, Kenny Johnson, we spoke to today, really likes him, and again, Pat Narduzzi likes him a lot. So I am excited to see what Eli can do on Saturday. But I mean, maybe he could start the season. Really, I don't know that that's what I want to get into right now. But if Nate Yarnell does struggle, I think they will look to put Eli on the field.
Yeah, wow, that's a pretty bold statement. We are only in April, so I mean, it's the time to throw him out there. Yeah, it does seem like Holstein is kind of climbing up the depth chart a little bit. I don't know if he's completely surpassed Veyer just in terms of what the coaches think of, who's our QB1, who's our QB2, who's our QB3 right now. But Holstein clearly has the trust of a lot of his teammates. Obviously the gold team, and those are captains in there. I believe their captains were uh one of them was Gavin Bartholomew. And Gavin, he's seen a lot of different kinds of quarterbacks here at Pitt. He's had varying levels of success with all of them. And this is a guy who is entering a big year for himself. And so, he's probably going to take his quarterback situation very seriously. I think he believes in Nate Yarnell, but it wasn't there for him to take. And, between Veyer and Holstein, he went with Holstein. He and his fellow captains. And I think that is extremely notable. In addition to what you alluded to, Kenny Johnson talking about him today. I think the other thing is that what Pat Narduzzi tells us all the time is that guys on the team know who the best players are. They know who is in line to earn a starting job, who might be a little bit farther behind. They know who the good players are because they're at practice every day. They're playing with these guys. They're in the mix with them. They know, they can see it with their own eyes. And I think what this tells you is that the players are seeing Holstein play better than Veyer. So well, I think it might take some time before Holstein's able to climb up even into the second string job. It is certainly possible. It seems like it's even possibly trending that way right now. Who really knows? We don't have depth charts in front of us, but Holstein is clearly doing a really nice job. I think the turnover point is also really notable. I mean, I talked about it yesterday and the day before, I believe, but Pitt, you walk out at practice, you see a lot of takeaway stickers on the helmets of defensive players. Pat Narduzzi told us that he hasn't noticed an abnormal number of turnovers, but it's clear that a lot are taking place. And for him to lump both Holstein and Yarnell in kind of the same category of these guys have done a better job protecting the ball than others, I think that's extremely notable. And for an offense where a lot of your job is just to get it to the right playmaker, that's super notable as well. So, Holstein clearly doing a good job. I don't know if I'm with you on him starting a game this year. I suppose it's possible, but I think we're a pretty long ways from that. But we'll see. It seems like this quarterback room is pretty deep. So who really knows? Getting moving on a little bit. We're gonna wrap this up talking about that spring game. We talked about it a little bit. I think you and I both like the gold team, but Give me a prediction. Who do you think wins the spring game this weekend? What do you think a final score is? And give me a reason why you think that team's going to come out on top.
Well, as long as the scoring is normal, unlike last year when they had a bunch of different rules that I was a bit unaware of at the time. But yeah, normal score, maybe 30 to 17 or something like that. Maybe they'll
Wow.
kick some field goals.
30-17 for the goal team, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of a blowout. I mean, I feel like usually these things are super close. Like the coaches just manipulate it so that it becomes
Yeah, I mean,
competitive.
it probably will be a bit closer. I'm just a bit bullish, I suppose, on the goal team.
Yeah, and I see it, like they have the better offensive line up front is usually how you determine these things. And I mean a team that has both, Fitzsimmons and Dayon Hayes up front, you got at least one starting safety. You got Jesse Anderson who's really coming along. I feel like their linebacker group is a little more filled out on the goal team, but I don't know. I look at this blue team and I look at Nate Yarnell and I think he's going to be able to command a pretty good offense. I think they've got the better running backs on the blue team. The receivers as well. Like I'm pretty high on Zion Fowler. I like Konate Mumfield as well. They've got the veteran duo at safety. I'm tempted to go blue, but I think I am going to jump on the gold train with you. I think it's more low scoring though. I feel like, even though they're trying to maintain some continuity along the offensive line, it's still going to be kind of a work in progress and still going to be a little different. So I think it's lower scoring, probably like I'm going to go 20-17. I think gold team wins. Even 20, that makes me feel uncomfortable because I feel like that's a pretty big number. But you've got two gold team supporters in here. We'll see how it turns out on Saturday. Should be an exciting day on the North Shore. Supposed to have some pretty good weather. I think all this rain is supposed to clear out by then. But hopefully everyone who's heading down to the North Shore has a nice time. They enjoy a good spring game, and we see some interesting stuff out of the Pitt Panthers this weekend. For Dom and I, we're signing off. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another Inside Pitt practice report. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Inside the Panthers, and follow all of our reporting with Dom's byline in there a bunch now at si.com/college/Pittsburgh. Appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll see you next time.